Hello and welcome back to The Inverted Castle, a Metroidvania enthusiast podcast and RPG enthusiast podcast now, I guess. I'll be your GM for this session, Eric Fox, and joining me as always is the only player who actually read the rules, Tom Blight.
I want to shoot magic missile at the darkness.
It does not work, but what does work is this great game made by Team Ladybug called Record of Lodoss War. Deedlit in Wonder World, Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth.
Yeah, I feel like it should be like Alice in Wonderland. It's kind of Alice in Wonderland, I guess, if you squint at it. I don't know.
I don't recall Alice falling down a memory hole, but then again, I'm also not familiar enough with the Record of Lodoss War empire of media.
Yeah, I did not do that much research for this.
I did only as far as that intro, which is apparently Record of Lodoss War started as essentially the proto actual play podcast of D&D. Essentially, they would release just like transcripts of sessions they would play in this, homebrew setting, and then those turned into novels, into light novels or manga, anime, a whole bunch of stuff. But it follows the same kind of conventions as the swords and sorcery type stuff.
Yeah.
But this game, Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth, draws on a lot of the characters from that series, which if you're not familiar, don't really worry about it. The story is mostly accessible, but we'll get into why that still is a problem. But the game, instead of being a D&D focused thing, it's very much a Castlevania.
Yeah, which, felt somewhat natural. I don't know.
Yeah, it uses a lot of, listen, Castlevania is already just every monster that has ever appeared in anything ever, so seeing a lot of the familiar faces in that is fine, but just seeing a regular goblin is actually kind of unique.
Yeah, I remember reading something talking about Record of Lodoss War, saying that it's so old that it's generic.
Yeah, it's from the 80s.
Which, fair, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, because it is old enough for everything else that we've seen as relatively young people, I guess.
We're not young people at this point.
Give me this, please. We've seen a lot of things that were inspired by Record of Lodoss War, I assume. It seems like one of those pillars that a lot of things draw on.
Yeah. It's possible that I haven't done research on this, but it could have influenced things like Final Fantasy, right?
Yeah.
And then Final Fantasy goes on to influence other things, or Dragon Warrior goes on to influence other things.
Yeah, famously Dragon Warrior, or Dragon Quest, as it is known in glorious Nihon, was inspired directly from the Dungeons & Dragons gaining popularity in Japan. But it's a thing we don't remember, which is good news, because in the story of Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth, neither does our character Deedlit.
It's true. Yeah, every encounter she has with another character, I kept expecting there to be something that was somewhat normal going on, and the normalest interaction you have is with the thief that lets you gamble.
Pretty much, yeah. There are a lot of characters, they have names. Clearly, if you're a fan of the series, you're like, oh, I recognize that reference. But in this game, because it's of its smaller scope for what the kind of story it's telling, you'll just run into people and they just exist, and they'll be the shop owner who just who'll sell you weapons and not really say much other than vaguely, this should help you on your adventure.
Yeah, he's got the real, what are you buying? What are you selling? Going on.
Not as charming, though.
Yeah, but I don't know, all of the interactions are like that. Deedlit says their name, they say something incredibly cryptic, and then they're gone. There
are a few reoccurring ones who is basically, those are going to be the boss that you have to fight at some point. Carla, I believe is her name.
Yeah.
The Dark Witch, who keeps summoning dudes at you, and it seems to know the most until you figure out what's going on. But otherwise, it's just Deedlit trying to find her lost love, Parn, who she thinks is oh man, he's there, but didn't he die? He died.
Yeah, he died. This whole thing is just like, after all of the events of the series, Deedlit's an elf, she's still alive, everyone else is gone.
And so this memory hole she's found, this Wonder Labyrinth, is her kind of like just running through the who's who of what happened during her adventures. Fighting some people, some of them might have been friendly towards her. If I knew more about the lore, it might mean something. I don't know.
Yep.
But as far as the story is, it's mostly her just coming to terms with, yeah, these people are gone, this story's over, and by the end of it, she defeats the memory demon that's trapped her there.
Yeah, I don't know, something about the ending kind of implied that the memory demon might just be her.
Yeah, again, like, whatever taxonomy of demons that they're using here, whether or not they're real or just a legend or is a real thing that happened in the books.
Yeah, it's got that, like, oh yeah, that demon loneliness. Yeah. It's like, is loneliness an actual demonic concept in this world, or are we just talking about, like, people who lose the will to live because they're lonely?
That's the fun thing about fantasy, is that metaphor is just text.
Fair.
We don't need to have yeah.
But yeah, I guess switching to the gameplay.
Yes.
It kind of ends up being Ikaruga, which is a reference that everyone will totally get. Yeah. You have essentially two colors. In this, it's elements of wind and fire opposing, rather than, like, I don't know, other things doing more of a, like, water or fire.
Usually it's water and fire, but this time they went with air because I think they don't do much with water and, like, water mechanics, but air, they can do wind and jumping and floating, which is what it mostly gameplay wise gives you.
Yeah, so like at any time you're either air or you're fire. Air attacks or fire attacks will just go through you if you're in the right mode, and non-elemental things will still hit you, or other elements aren't really a thing in this. You can change some of your attacks into other elements and do more damage, but it's not a big system.
Much like most Castlevanias, there is elemental weaknesses for every enemy, but you don't have to pay too much attention to it other than which of the two main modes you're in.
Yeah.
You can have a weapon that gives darkness attributes, so you don't have to worry about attacking the wrong element, but at most you're going to just do no damage, and you can just switch at the click of a button, so that's fine.
I definitely walked into a fight with Carla with a dark arrow on, though. That was not great.
No, but you can just swap at any time.
Yes.
Thankfully, if you're in combat, you're not locked into whatever weapon you're using. But yeah, like this is a fairly arcadey version of the Castlevania Explore 'em Up, in that like the action is very quick. You build up levels in each of the two modes. Levels 1, 2, and 3. At 3, you just start regenning health forever. Yeah. As long as you're in that, but if you take even a single bit of damage, then that gets knocked back down. To build it up, you have to swap to the other element. So a lot of combat is just hitting the right elements. If you get knocked down, swap, hit other, like any damage will build it back up, and things die fairly quickly.
Yeah, at first I found that confusing, mostly because like I kept thinking, I don't know, almost like Cave Story, like I want to be using the weapon that I'm actually gaining experience for. Yeah. Even though in Cave Story, experience is a physical thing, you can just swap weapons and pick up. But at some point, it sort of just clicked, and I was like, oh wait, no, the incentives are so that I always want to be in the side that is level 3, and then that will turn the other side into level 3 if I'm doing well. And then if I get hit, I can just swap to the other one, which is now level 3 again, and continue healing and continue building up that one back to level 3.
Yeah, and you can even swap during hit stun, which can hurt you a lot if you don't realize you're currently getting comboed, and then suddenly you have no level 3.
Yeah, I did that a couple times. A couple times you have to switch it during the hit stun in order to absorb some fire attacks, usually.
Yeah, but like it's you don't have a lot of health, and enemies tend to do quite a bit of damage. And even if you get hit enough times in a succession, you will get stunned. Like, you're just going to be completely helpless, and if they're about to do the big move on you, it could get rough for you.
Yeah, actually, it was kind of funny, because I was reading other people's comments, and a lot of people, at least in the actual press, seemed to think that it was a little too easy. I was like, I don't know, I was challenged. I died a couple times against a couple bosses.
Yeah, I don't think dying a couple of times against a couple of bosses is too hard, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too hard, but it certainly wasn't like, oh, I'm just walking through the park on all of this. Although, I wasn't using the magic spells very much, and I think at the boss rush, I hit the point where, yes, you have to use the magic spells or else this will take forever.
Yes, so for combat, your options are swing whatever weapon you have. It's the Castlevania classics of just straight sword, big arcing sword, as well as some ranged boomerang type weapons, which is unique for this, at least.
Oh yeah, the boomerangs were great.
Boomerangs were great. They completely invalidated the essentially the boo enemies from Mario.
That's true, yeah. And you get one right before them if you're doing it right.
If you're doing it right. There are a ton of weapons, but they mostly follow that pattern of the straight swords you can swing in 8 directions. Same with the boomerangs, you can throw them in all those 8 directions, which is nice, which is better than what Castlevania usually gets you.
Yeah, I kept forgetting I can stab directly up. I was like, oh, I can actually just hit these people above me.
Yeah, like this game doesn't have the like jump cancel autos, essentially, where you can like instantly do another attack as soon as you land, but instead you can just not jump and swing up, which is great.
Yeah.
Can't pogo off of enemies by swinging down, although it does kind of stall you in the air a bit.
Bottom tier, clearly.
Yeah, but that's really why I'm going to give this the lowest rank possible, even worse than Xanadu. But you do stall a bit, so that's fine.
Yeah. Other combat options, you have a bow, which uses a little bit of MP, but unless you're spamming it, I never really noticed the MP contribution.
Yeah, no, it doesn't affect the things at all. Like, what really eats up MP is the spells.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which you can collect throughout the adventure. You get one for free. But they'll do a bunch of different effects, and they'll all have their own elemental effects. But they're what eat up your MPs. But they also will damage enemies and give you back your level 3 in whatever element you need at that point. Between that and the bow is how I usually built up the health regen while I was in a naughty spot.
Yeah. And, like, the initial spell is actually pretty good. This is certainly not a game where your initial equipment is going to be completely invalidated. Well, okay.
Equitable stuff does scale out, but the spells, they'll scale with your stats as you level up.
Yeah.
Which is good. And the first one you get is just a bunch of homing missiles.
Yeah. It's also light element, which it turns out to be most of the bosses are vulnerable to.
In classic Castlevania fashion. Like, I don't think, except for the one time you fight the Belmont, aka you basically fight your old adventuring party. A few of them are immune to light, but outside of that,
yeah,
it's pretty good. Like, if you're using all of the stuff, like, this game can be pretty easy, and it's honestly very short regardless. I know we do this every time, and I don't want to brag, but I am, just curious what your playtime was.
Oh god, I didn't actually check it.
Oh no.
I don't know.
Was it more than 4 hours?
Probably, yes.
Was it more than 8 hours?
Probably around 8 hours.
Okay. Yeah, mine was in between 4 and 5. It's hard to tell with like leaving the game idle and redoing the ending after getting 100% map.
Yeah. Which, speaking of 100% map, I guess we should talk about traversal.
Yes.
There's not very much, like, gaining abilities and ability gates in this game. There's a little bit. You gain a slide, you gain a double jump, you gain a super jump. And that's pretty much it for the ability gating. There are also switches.
Which are essentially just colored keys.
Yeah.
Flip the switch and then all of the colored doors of that thing suddenly are open as though you just collected a key.
Which, colorblindness fun.
Oh, yeah, right.
It wasn't too bad. Only the teal doors. I couldn't tell the difference between a teal door on the map and the white or gray edges of the rooms. So there was at least one teal door that I was just like, there's a door there?
Classic coneless behavior from Tom. Get better eyes. It's clearly your fault.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't sure if like the light blue and light red was also going to be an issue for
no.
The trying to color coordinate the main gimmick of this game, which is the Ikaruga style.
I mean, I had trouble sometimes tracking which one I was in, but
So did I.
Yeah, I don't think that was a colorblindness thing. I think that was a, like, learning to look at the gem in the center.
Yes.
Rather than trying to actually look at the character following me.
The character model also changes, like, the hue a little bit
Yeah.
when you're in the different modes, but it's slight enough that when you're mid-combat, it's not something your brain will naturally notice.
Yeah, so there was a couple times where I was like, oh no, a fire attack is coming. Switch. Oh wait, no, I was already in fire.
I did that all the time. It didn't help that this game is lousy with particle effects. That's hard. Like when I'm spamming the bow or a spell on the enemy, you can't actually see what the enemy's doing. So if they're gearing up for like an attack, it was very hard to tell which one it was.
Oh yeah.
For some of the later bosses, then that meant me getting like chain grabbed or just hit with a faster projectile than I was used to.
Yeah, particularly I found it with the bosses that throw chains.
Yes.
I don't think I ever saw chains while I was shooting arrows at the same time.
Yeah, they'll just overlap with the arrow, and you didn't see the wind up because of all of the like little cubes that form the energy for your whatever element you're in.
Yeah.
I felt that combat, like certainly towards the end, was very sloppy on my end, and I'm not sure how much of that was my fault and how much of that was I just can't read all the stuff going on screen at the same time.
Oh yeah, I definitely got sloppier. I'm pretty sure I was worse during the boss rush than I actually was, and the spells just paved all sins.
Yep. Spells are pretty good. Use them. They make the game as easy as the game's press told you it was.
Yeah. I guess one other thing that we didn't really touch on the traversal is the arrow puzzles.
Yeah. It was an interesting idea that they brought up really early on. Like as soon as you get the bow, you start seeing these like reflection puzzles where you have to bounce the arrow in such a way that it navigates towards a rope that'll open up a door.
Yeah.
And they, like every so often, they'll just pop one in front of you, just like solve it.
Yeah. Which, like, they were an alright distraction, like using a different set of skills from the combat.
The game's definitely better for it.
Yeah. I don't know. I got kind of tired of them by the end, or like the end ones stopped being interesting.
The end ones were probably the worst of them just because they are just a gear you just shoot a bunch.
Oh yeah, and especially the elevator ones.
Yeah.
Although the spinning swords were also kind of obnoxious. Those times I did run out of mana, and then I was like, okay, so I guess I'm just gonna wait for this to recover?
Yeah, getting mana back is either run back to a save or find something that deals one of the two elements and just let them spam at you.
Yeah.
If you were lucky enough to have found the invisibility spell, you can just kind of skip past the swords.
Oh. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's fairly hidden, but since the map itself is very like compact, there are no like holes inside of the labyrinth. Insofar as within the like main body of it. Out on the outskirts, who knows where things are, but if there's any place you haven't been on the inside, there's a secret door somewhere there.
So I managed to leave some very early ones blank for a very long time, and was like, wait a minute, if I'm filling in all of these other spaces, does that mean that there's stuff there too?
Yeah, exactly. Just that one little square that hasn't been traversed and is like surrounded on all sides by walls. It's like one of those walls is fake.
Yeah.
99% of them, it's rational. Like I got 99% map completion, no problem. The last one is bullshit. Like even though you know it's there and you know you should be able to get past it, there's this one floor you have to jump on 50 times in a row.
Yeah, who would have found that naturally?
Because it doesn't, like, even if you know something's there and you start jumping on it, there's no indication until you're like 20 jumps in that anything's actually happening.
I think it's 40, but yes.
Yeah, it might even be 40. Like you can stab past it, swinging at it does nothing, indicates nothing. I kept thinking like maybe there's something else, like some switch somewhere, because they did do that with the colored doors. That opens it, but no, and it's just kind of a joke weapon.
Yeah, I mean, I assume if I knew Record of Lodoss War better, that joke weapon might mean something to me.
I would have been slapping my thigh, hooting and hollering about how funny this joke was, but instead I'm just like, oh, that's kind of bullshit.
There is also the real version of that, which is similarly kind of dumb bullshit.
Oh, yeah?
You have to kill, I think it's 100 of the oak enemies, the respawning doll things with swords, to get the actual Soul Crusher.
I didn't get 100% weapons. I stopped at map. What does the true thing do? What's special about it?
Honestly, it's just a powerful sword.
Okay. This game already has too many weapons for the length of the game.
Yeah, especially, like, every time I got to the shop, I was just like, you don't have better weapons than what I'm using.
And I'd have to spend all of the money I currently have on a weapon.
Yeah.
And it's not even that good and will be outclassed. And honestly, I'm not having trouble, so... You'll be just tripping over new weapons every, like, I don't know, couple of rooms.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you were worse at backtracking or... I don't know, there aren't that many health and MP ups either.
No, 5 each, I believe.
Yeah.
Start with 100 of MP and HP, respectively, and then up to 150. That's it.
Yeah.
And then you also can power up your respective elements of air and fire, which I'm sure did something, not that I noticed.
It increases their damage multiplier when you're level 3.
Okay.
I don't know, if you ever spent somewhat long periods in level 1, you would notice that your damage is actually significantly lower.
I noticed that it was lower, I just didn't realize that's what was causing it, or if it was just a natural function of the levels.
Okay, yeah, I think it got more and more magnified the more of those that you picked up.
Yeah, because as you go up in levels, it also adds that element to your attacks, so it makes sense that the attacks would get better with your element level.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, for such a short game, they gave you so many unique weapons, but they're all kind of like just such incremental increases that none of them felt like, oh man, this changes everything. Especially the bows, because the bows are not really your main combat utility ever.
Yeah, and even the slow speed bows felt fairly fast.
Yeah. I mostly used the faster ones or the multi-arrow ones just to get the level 3 back faster.
Yeah, I didn't really use the multi-arrow ones. I managed to skip the 3-hit one for a very long time, then, I don't know, the 5-hit one just didn't feel that good. I don't know.
Nah.
I did try to use them to cheese the arrow game, which I was not successful in.
No, me neither. In addition to gambling, there's also just a fun little arrow mini game. I never beat it because I took one look at it, tried it, and was like, maybe.
Yeah, I think it gives you a good bow.
Sure.
But it wasn't that much better.
Yeah, that's kind of the story of every weapon upgrade. It's not that much better, and you're probably fine using spells and just building up your auto regen anyway.
Yep.
It is what it is.
Yeah. There's not much more. I mean, you go through a who's who of people from Record of Lodoss War.
The bosses are fairly fun to fight. They're all fairly unique, except for some of the end ones that kind of repeat the same attacks a little bit with the chain.
Yeah, some of the end ones are all just guy with sword.
Yeah, there's like 3 in a row.
That might also be Soul Crusher. I'm not completely sure. I don't know the lore.
Again, yeah, lore is very important apparently if you really want to get the most out of this game. But like the pixel art is pretty great, even if the environments are fairly samey for most of the game.
Yeah.
A lot of castle or a lot of things you've already seen, like cavern with lava, castle with overgrown bushes, desert castle.
I assume that these biomes might be familiar to someone, but I don't know.
They look good, like they're well done. It's just things you've seen before, but I think the pixel art on the big bosses, like the dragons, look quite nice when you're outside in the little epilogue area. Very good little town in the distance.
Yeah.
Team Ladybug does presentation quite well in this game, even if it's a little cluttered for the actual gameplay part of it.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of the weird sword, the heirloom sword that is very hard to swing.
Another fun little joke is there's a point at which you have a little vision of like the real world, and you can get this giant sword, and it's part of the main game as well, and you can use it normally there, but during the dream sequence or anti-dream sequence, I'm not sure how many levels deep we were at that point, but you try to swing it and it just locks you directly in place and you can't do anything until you unequip it.
Yeah.
It's a fun little touch that I assume means something when, I guess, Deedlit herself is a ranger and not a barbarian or fighter. She's not proficient in heavy weapons, martial weapons.
I mean, she can swing big swords around, though. Although...
That's in the dream, though.
Yeah, actually, that confused me. So I sold like a bunch of the beginning stuff, and then I found out money isn't very relevant.
Yeah.
When in those sequences, the rapier would always be replaced by whatever was in my first item slot.
Oh, it replaced it?
So I think that's a bug. I think it was just like, oh wait, I don't have a rapier.
Oh, so it just, like you lost the weapon?
Yeah, so what I had was Zebra instead, the two-hand sword.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not sure this is right, but...
When you returned, did you get Zebra back? Or?
Oh yeah, like my inventory was fine once it returned.
I thought it had messed it up, but...
No.
Yeah, I think for that, it's supposed to be like taking place in the past or something.
Yeah.
So like what you only have the rapier, and if you break the thing, heirloom sword.
Yeah, it was just funny because it's like, this is a rapier. Swing giant sword. It's like, a rapier for who?
Oh, that's what you meant, is that it was still the Zebra.
Yeah.
They called it the rapier.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's a bug, but honestly, it's fine enough.
Yeah, it was a harmless bug.
I like it, especially since at that point you're not really supposed to be fighting anything.
Although there are enemies in there, and they will kill you.
They will kill you. They're high-level enemies, and you generally aren't really equipped because you're supposed to have a rapier.
Yeah, you also don't have access to your abilities in there. Like, I tried to slide under them and found out I cannot slide.
Yeah.
I have no mouth and I cannot slide. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I have no feet and I must slide.
Yes.
Oh, man. But yeah, that was a unique sequence, but mostly the game is level, like, another way in which this game is kind of arcadey is that it's fairly level-based.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't really end up meaning anything. Like, there are back paths.
There are back paths, but they're generally either, like, to the next area proper, so, like, just go back and then now you're in sequence, or it's just a goodie you can go back and get for optionally. But, like, they follow this rhythm of each new area has two bosses, a mid-boss, usually guarding whatever new ability you're getting, either the jump or the double jump or the super double jump.
Yeah.
And then the main final boss, which is like more cutscene heavy and will then transition to the next area. Like it even has like, as soon as you enter, it'll be like this little dice falling down and it'll be like level 2, level 3.
Yeah, which was kind of a spoiler for how many levels there are in it.
Yeah, it was a D6 in case anyone's keeping track. A D20 would have pushed this game way out of scope. But would have been nice, and also a callback to its origins as a tabletop RPG.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you do use dice in that gambling minigame if you need money, which you don't need money.
Yeah, I don't know, you could play the game by spamming potions instead of just dying and retrying?
Yeah, I never bought potions.
I bought them and then very rarely used them. I think one of the few times I did use potions was when I wanted more mana to shoot arrows at the arrow puzzle.
That would be a reason to have mana, is if in case you mess up the puzzles. But outside of that, usually you're getting mana back because every boss will have a bunch of a spam ability that will just regen your mana.
Yeah.
If you are the right element.
Yeah, I took a long time to figure out that was what was happening. I was like, why is this called Drain? When it's really just like Nullify.
It's because you're getting mana, not health.
That makes sense.
Exactly. But yeah, 6 levels, you know that from the beginning, and right before you get to this, I think it's before the 6th or halfway through the 6th, the game kind of shows its hand in how short it is by giving you a boss rush, mandatory, cannot skip.
Yeah.
Not unlike Mega Man's Robot Masters, you fight every boss you've already fought in sequence. I don't think they're scaled up all that much, though.
They are not at all.
Not at all. So, like, the early bosses go down real quick, whereas the later bosses who you just fought, you just get to do them again.
Yeah, that was kind of funny, because the first boss, I just, like, started spamming and I think was dead before I realized what was happening.
At that point, you're just like, am I really doing all of them? Surely there's going to be a break, but no. In between every boss, you do get a full refill of health mana and your elemental charge.
Yeah, and if you're really fast, you can kind of carry it over to the next boss. Or like get damaged in the next boss and pick up the health afterward.
Yeah, you don't have to take it immediately. You can just kind of let it sit, but they'll fade after a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
It was a point where I was just really annoyed because like I know I'm on the cusp of beating the game, and then it's like There is a boss rush mode already, and I never do boss rushes generally, and they made me do it, and it was kind of like, oh, I guess I'm a lot stronger now.
I don't know. It turned into, like, I actually died a couple times against the last to that point boss.
Exactly, and to redo the entire gauntlet again, it was pretty feels bad. Like the boss fights I think are still like the best parts of the game.
Yeah.
So that wasn't too bad. It was just kind of annoying that they forced my hand.
Yeah. And actually I was surprisingly bad at fighting, oh god, I'm forgetting her name, the Dark Elf Pyrotess?
I think that's correct. She's kind of your foil, also in there to find her long lost love, but she also is probably just a figment of your imagination as well.
I mean, I don't know the source material, so maybe she did that resurrecting thing in the source material.
Big shrug. I'm very sorry that I did not do my due diligence and watch and read all of the myriad bits of media from this gargantuan series, but can't really hold it against the game because, you know, what am I doing? Playing a licensed game, not knowing the license.
Yeah, and I mean, it is something like 30 years after the, like, licensed series got big. I think that's why they made it. It was for the 30th anniversary, and then they were late, or something like that.
Oh, okay. Like, I know they had still been making, like, adaptations. Like, I think there was a game in 2016 as well. That was, like, an MMO?
Yeah, okay.
I couldn't have done very well, but they were still keeping the dream alive. But yeah, I think that might have been the 25th anniversary, and then this one was going to be the 30th.
Maybe.
Speculating here, talking out my ass. Yeah, so like this game is very understandable if you just know stories. You just know like, oh yeah, Journey to the Center of the Mind, understanding, but not knowing the names of characters makes it hard to connect with.
I mean, there are sort of developments, but they're not very impactful in terms of like, you're not going to get any satisfying narrative out of this.
Yeah, and for a 4 to 8 hour game, investing all the time into knowing the lore just isn't like, you'd have to more or less play this first and then get interested, but I don't think it really did that for me, at least.
Yeah, it didn't, I guess, give enough meat to the, like, even the relationship to Parn, it's really, really surface deep.
He looks like generic sword dude, like from anime.
Hey,
have you heard of anime? It's that guy.
But I don't know, it's just like, it's definitely just like, you don't get any sense of what their relationship is actually like, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure they had great adventures together, but
yeah, he's just guy who is affection.
Yeah, it's already established, and the nuances of that were, I'm sure, great in the source material, but here it's already just established as like, you love this man, and I don't.
Yeah. Oh no, he died. I'm sad, maybe? Except at that point I was already pretty sure it was a dream.
Yeah. We're already in this is a Wonder Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Not real space, and things are already weird, and like the glitch effects on the screen that keep happening, and you know, Deedlit clutching her head, being like, "What? Who? What?" It's very clear.
Yeah.
There's some shenanigans going on, but I don't know. It was a fun game while I was playing it, but a little short and a little for the gameplay mechanics they have. It just seemed like a larger game would have benefited. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was fine. It was good, even. It's just, it was very much once I was done with it, I was done.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. Anything else?
I mean, I guess we should move to the stack rank.
Okay. So, to recall, last we did was Haiku the Robot.
Yep.
For you, currently standing at number 5. Which game do you think is most similar to? As far as where you would rank it.
Where I would rank Deedlit?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to put it... It was enjoyable to play.
Was it better than Guacamelee?
I want to put it somewhere around that range, and I'm just not sure.
How about Iconoclast? Is it better than Iconoclast?
I'm going to say... Let's go below Guacamelee. That disgraceful spot above Metroid Prime. I mean, like...
Just outside the top 10, new number 11, Deedlit.
What I'm finding out, what I really require to enjoy a game is interesting boss fights. And I feel like this had interesting boss fights that made me want to learn their patterns and get better at them. And learn when to switch elements instead of dodging, or vice versa.
Yeah, I just wish there were more mechanics for dodging. Because like you do have the backdash classic Castlevania, but it wasn't altogether useful.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bosses are good. I just wish all the rest of it was more interesting. Like it just kind of felt like plowing through enemies and some perfunctory bow puzzles.
Yeah.
But I think I actually might end up ranking it. No, mine's going to be lower. So yeah, you currently have it as your new number 11 above Metroid Prime. I'm probably going to have it at my, actually, number 12. Right under Haiku and above Guacamelee.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of rank Guacamelee quite a bit lower than you, but I think the presentation on this was quite nice as far as the pixel art. Music's all right. We didn't really talk about it. It's in a genre like full of pretty good music. This one was just kind of like, yeah, it's Castlevania again.
Yeah, I didn't really notice it in any direction.
Yeah, exactly.
It seemed to fit the scenes where it was in.
Yeah, it faded. It kind of faded to the background, which is fine, but you kind of want more. But I'm just thinking about, I liked Haiku's traversal a lot better.
Yeah.
As far as like that was more satisfying, and certainly different. It felt fresher than Deedlit, which is just Castlevania. Like everything it does outside of its Ikaruga style thing is basically you're already getting that and more so.
Yeah, and a real basic.
Oh yeah, no, that's like it feels like it's just applying like a more Metroidvania style thing, but like with the body of a like Super Castlevania or like one of the more level based like Rondo of Blood or something.
Yeah.
It's very much just action, do your attacks, and exploration is there, but it's still, you can progress level based 1, 2, 3 to 6. I don't know. That's just where my gut's feeling. Like honestly, if you asked me in an hour, I'd probably rank it lower or higher.
So there's a lot of things in the middle that could go anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah, the middle is very much a like it's very hard to summon up the like passion to argue for and against all of these things that are like, yeah, they're good. I enjoyed my time, but I'm not going to recommend them.
Yeah.
Like that highly. But maybe you can recommend a better game for next week.
Yeah.
Next month.
All right. Next week's game, going somewhat old, I guess. Not super old. We're going to one of the early indie games. We're going to Aquaria. I know you thought it was going to be La Mulana.
I was so hoping for La Mulana.
Aquaria's like a year or two after, or maybe in the same year. I don't remember now.
Okay.
They're pretty contemporary.
Okay, it's one I haven't played, so that's also a plus.
Yeah, I've also never played it. I've heard of it, and I really should play it in that, like, it is one of the early indie games in the genre. So I wanted to check it out.
Okay. Well, I guess you forced my hand. I can't say no at this point. You've locked me in the dungeon.
I mean,
with a dragon.
If one of us chose a game that we hated enough,
somehow hasn't happened yet, despite my best efforts.
That was like the second game. I'm talking about Xanadu.
Yeah, it's still so wild, but you know. Okay then, Aquarius. Do you want to do the plugs?
Oh yeah, geez, plugs.
Yeah, I always do them. Now I'm throwing it to you. My ability as host.
Yeah. So follow us on social media. We're on Twitter at InvertedCastleP. We're on Facebook at Inverted Castle Podcast. You can send us an email at invertedcastlepodcast@gmail.com. Write us an Apple Podcasts review, maybe? I don't know.
Listen, if you hate the show, thanks for sticking it out, but please don't review. But I think that's it for all of us here. I've been Eric Fox.
And I've been Thomas Blake.
And remember, kids, please remember, you have to remember.